However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. And tonight, strap in because we're going to cover it all in regard to alien contactee experiences, blood types in relation to aliens and humans, hybrids, contactees, and so much more. We are covering the extraterrestrial and experiencer gamut tonight. So this is going to be a real fun one with Les Velez. And he will also discuss the psychological effects of contact with non-human intelligences. He will also cover MUFON and his organization Opus, as well as implants, hybrids, and the physics behind some of these effects, which I'm really interested to hear what Les has to say. If you are a fan of this show and other shows on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/paranormalpop, click like, subscribe, comment down below, and please do check out the Half-Light documentary, which is now available on this channel. And of course, that does cover much of what we will be talking about tonight as well. For the cosmic coffee lovers, you can go to aliencoffeebean.com and get my favorite coffee, Alien Coffee Bean. And if you are in the US, you can get a 20% discount code by entering all caps mystery 20, mystery 20, all caps. So don't miss out on that. They are some of the best roasters. They really are. Now tonight, we're not going to have the Skype call-in lines, but I will be looking for your questions in chat. So we'll try to get to those in the second hour, but we'll see how it goes. Maybe in the second half an hour, we'll jump into chat a little bit earlier because I've kind of been doing that a little bit lately. I enjoy your comments and questions. It kind of helps with the ebb and flow of the show. Les Velez is a graduate of the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, as well as U.S. Army veteran and former VP of Luscombe Engineering. In 1991, Les joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and has held the following positions: field investigator, training coordinator for field investigators, the assistant state director in Northern California, chairman of the ARC Abduction Experiencer Research Committee, and team leader of the ART Abduction Response Team, a predecessor to MUFON's ER team, which is the Experiencer Resource Team, and presently holds the position of research consultant for the ERT. Very cool. In 1994, Velez co-founded Opus, the organization for paranormal understanding and support. That's opusnetwork.org. Les recently released his book, The Unknown Other, an existential proposition of alien contact, and it's available now. And yeah, there is an existential quality to all of this. I know in the news we often hear, as of late, referring to UAPs and a threat. But in this case, when we're thinking existential, there's almost a spiritual and psychological component to it, a sense of who are we in the grand scheme of things? What is our value in all of this? Or are we just pawns? So I will ask Les these questions and more right now. Les, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Hey, how are you, Alan? Good to be here.
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So you cover so much of what we hear of as the ET, exoconscious, non-human intelligence contact experience. So there's a lot to cover. Where did you start in your interest in all this?
Yeah, well, for me, when I was living in Connecticut, when I was 11 years old, I saw this object. It was a late October evening, and I was coming into the house after checking on my dog Caesar, and I noticed this white oval object, not making any sound whatsoever, slowly moving over a tree line. and slowly drifted out of sight, and it scared the hell out of me. And I ran in the house, and I tried to get my father to come out to see what I saw. And of course, it was gone by the time I convinced him to come out. And he says, "Oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off the clouds."
Hmm.
And of course, I didn't buy that. And I shortly thereafter went to the library, the local library, and looked up books on UFOs. And back in those days, George Adamski was the big hitter,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was talking about his contacts with the Venusians. And anyway, I really got interested in it. And as things turned out, I became an adolescent, and other things became more of interest to me, mostly girls. And
Typical
uh,
story.
went off to college, and the whole thing has kind of disappeared in my life. And
Hmm.
subsequently was in the service, artillery officer, and got married and had a couple of kids. And in 1985, I moved out to California, and from Connecticut, and picked up the San Jose Mercury News one day, and Stanton Freeman was going to be talking about UFOs in the government cover up at San Jose City College. Well,
Hmm.
it was like somebody threw the switch, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I got to go see this guy and hear what he has to say." So when I went there, I expected to see a handful of people. Well, the auditorium was full, and he gave one of his inimitable uh, lectures and just blew me away. And on my way out in the foyer, MUFON had a table that they were basically talking about their organization, and the fact that they had a monthly journal that they published. So I decided, okay, I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to get the journal to get more involved with the phenomena. Well, it wasn't much beyond that I decided that that wasn't enough for me, and found out that MUFON has a training course for field investigators. So I took the course, passed the test, and that's when things got very interesting, because I went out in the field with a more seasoned investigator, and almost without exception, the cases that we got involved with were not only sightings, but they were also involved with contact with non-human intelligences. And so that really started me on the path that I'm on today, um, because these people asked me, did I know of other people having similar experiences? And I said, yes, I do. And the
Hmm.
next thing, I'm facilitating a support group in my office in San Jose, and so that's when I started to really hear and learn quite a bit about this phenomena from these people, that obviously something traumatic had happened to them in
Hmm.
regard to this phenomena. And a lot of them had, gone to a psychologist or a psychiatrist to see if they were going crazy, because that's what they thought. They thought perhaps that they were crazy, and they found out that they weren't crazy. So then what? What do you do then? And so
Well,
I, I I
that's a
just
big question list. That's a really good point that you're making right there, um, because oftentimes, people will say, "Well, these people are crazy. They need psychological help," right?
Mhm.
They're not actually in contact with alien
Reality.
species.
Yeah.
Right. Well, right. And so how do you say they are of sound mind? What's that process like? What does a psychiatrist do to say you're of sound mind? So I have to believe your story. Is that how it works?
Well, I think the problem that we have with the mental health community is the fact that a lot of them are not familiar with the phenomena. And look at
Mhm.
what happened to John Mack, even with his experience with Harvard University.
Yeah.
Uh, I think a lot of these people, when they hear things like this, start running in the opposite direction. They don't want
Mhm.
to deal with it because they don't have the background on it. And that's one of the things that our organization, Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, is trying to do. And we're actually just finished the first phase of the Omega 4 study, which is a follow on to the Omega 3 study that we have on our website, which was actually funded by MUFON back in 2007, that took 71 people that claimed that they had contact with non-human intelligences,
Mhm.
um, and compared that to 51 people that had not had this type of an experience. And we found some very interesting things. And the first thing we found out was that these people did not have a psychopathology. They weren't crazy.
Right.
And the second thing was that they weren't fantasy prone, and but they had trauma, some type of trauma in early childhood,
Mhm.
family problems, various things of that nature that caused them to dissociate in a way that wasn't psychopathology, but that caused them to be open to other things. So this omega 4 study that we're doing, the first phase was actually we went out to therapists and got their feedback on this questionnaire. And the second phase will be where we go out to their clients. And so we're hoping to get some more data on these people and what is happening to them. Uh, and the big question, is it extraterrestrial? Is it interdimensional? Is it time travel? Is it the military? Well, I think it's all the above, or anything you can possibly think of that is going on. And we just, from the scientific community, again, another sore point, so to speak, is the fact that the scientific community typically has not been open to really working with these people or talking to these people. However, our government behind the scenes is doing just that. And and so, they're just not being very forthcoming or very translucent as far as or transparent, I should say, as to what is really happening with these people. And I firmly believe that these people are having genuine experiences. And the big question is, what is it?
So if they're having a PTSD diagnosis, but there's nothing there to explain it in the ordinary sense,
Correct.
then what are they left with?
Yeah, exactly. And
But if you don't,
for
if there's a gap, are you just filling it in based on their story, or is there some other way to kind of, validate that the PTSD has to do with contact?
well, it's based on what these people are saying to us from conscious recollection in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
Some of it, retrieved via hypnosis, which has been, uh, you know, people have, especially debunkers, talk about the fact that, well, the things are being implanted in people and they're coming up with these stories. But the bottom line is that there are good hypnotherapists that understand how to really do that process.
Mhm.
And that these people are retrieving some things that the memory, for whatever reason, has been blocked. I'll tell you a story which relates to me
Sure.
personally. Um, During one of the support group meetings one year, a person said to me, "I've seen you before." And I said, "Oh, really? Where, at the UFO conference, or the local supermarket or something?" "No, no, no. I
Mhm.
saw you on board the craft." I said, "Really?" And I kind of blew it off. I didn't think much of it, um, because I have no conscious recollection of anything like that.
Right, it sounds like that because when you got into this, it wasn't because of abduction, it was just an interest.
Right. And
Right.
and so, of course, who knows what happened when I saw that object back then.
Uh, right.
That's the other side of the coin, because most of the cases where people have seen an object, there has been an abduction.
Yeah.
It's very closely related. And so, um, where the hell was I in this story now? I got sidetracked, but uh, the I'm lost. I forgot my train of thought
Well,
there.
I kind of threw you off, but you were talking about abduction, and you had an abduction.
Oh yeah, okay. So the second
Because
part of
someone
that
said
story,
that they
right? Okay,
recognized
right.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the second part of that story was the fact that uh, a year and a half later, a totally different person in the group said, "I've seen you before," and I said the same thing. A UFO conference, supermarket, gas station,
Mhm.
whatever. No, no, no. I saw you on board the craft. You were sitting on this bench naked, and you were freaking out, and they told me to go over to you to calm you down. Well, at that point, I decided, okay, I am going to go get regressed. Because I have no conscious recollection of this, and see if I can pull something out. Well, I subsequently, as I said, went to three different therapists, and none of them could find anything in that regard. However, I had multiple past lives, and one of the things that what I've encountered working with these people is that past life reincarnation is very significant factor in these types of things. And I had a conversation with someone later on that said, well, perhaps this person somehow tapped into a past life where perhaps that's when you got abducted. And, and, uh, and so, once you start going down this rabbit hole, it is a phenomena that has, as far as space and time, it just bends it six ways to Sunday. I mean, it is something. You have missing time cases. One of the cases that early on that I worked on was this couple that just had gone on a picnic to the state park north
Mhm.
of Santa Cruz, and they saw this object over the ocean, and it came in, and it was this triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet, and it happened like six more times for a total of seven craft that were sitting in this canyon behind them, and on their way out of the park after these things just seemingly disappeared, like they went around a corner, which there was no corner to go around. Uh, they had 3 hours of missing time. They showed up at a restaurant, which was only 5 to 10 minutes from where they were, and they had no recollection whatsoever. But then they had physical issues that occurred afterwards. This rash that they had, and they came to a subsequent support group meeting, and they had taken pictures of this thing, and they had gone to two different doctors that couldn't figure out what it was. And almost without exception, the people in the support group said that they had a similar rash when, after one of their experiences. And one of the people in the group said they thought they knew what it was. And so we said, oh, okay, so please tell.
Do
And they
tell.
said they that eh, they thought it was basically a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in to sanitize you when they bring you on board the craft.
Whoa.
So
So that's interesting because if it's to sanitize you, I guess on occasion someone's going to have some allergic reaction to whatever this,
right.
uh, you know, saline thing. Sure. So you mentioned earlier that your abduction could have taken place in another time.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah, in a past life of some sort. One of the things in my book, I have about 25 stories from people from our support group. One of
Mhm.
the factors that the Opus does have, or things that we offer people, is a online support group, which is totally confidential. And I have 25 of the people that have shared their stories, and one of them, uh, by the name of Adam Burns. He's actually been very forthcoming, and he's in the process of writing his own book about his experience. Um, Basically, talked to the aliens, and they said that yes, reincarnation is part of the universal process, and that it is something that is just part of the fabric of our whole system, if you will. So, I
Does
mean,
that does
these are.
that well, does that imply that they also have souls?
I believe that there's sure that they have a consciousness. They have that spirituality, if you will. I mean, when these people get a have these experiences, the whole process is a spiritual journey. There's no question about it. 80% of these people come out of it wanting the experience to continue. It's only a small percentage, that 20% or 25% that want it to stop because it's very negative. And
I mean,
uh,
well, 20% is I mean, that's a pretty big number. Just, you know, if you take 1,000 people, 200, it's pretty big.
yeah,
So,
sure.
even though the vast majority is okay with it, what do you do with that 20%? I mean, how do you reconcile that?
Well, if you reconcile it, I think just like we have here on Earth, we have good people and we have bad people. And I believe that the same thing is going on up there or wherever that there is.
Mhm.
That there's groups that are they're pretty good and others that are pretty bad. And unfortunately, some people get hooked up with the wrong group.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've tried to do is recommend them to read a couple of books. One is Kathleen Martin's book, Extraterrestrial Contact, and the
Mhm.
other one is a book by Ann Druffel, uh, who I knew personally and unfortunately passed away here a couple of years ago. Wrote a book, How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction. And she has 9 different ways that people wrote into her to tell her how they stop the experiences from going forward.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was something that uh, you know these people said that worked for them, and it's. But what I've seen and what I've heard is that when you have to be very, very uh, forceful and absolutely sure that you want these things to stop, because a lot of times people say they want it to stop, but they have a certain amount of curiosity there that
Mhm.
is in the back of their mind, like, why me? Why is this going on? Who are they? What's their agenda? All these questions that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
And so you have to be firm and say, hey, stop. I don't want this to continue. Just get out of here and I don't want to see you ever again, type of a thing. So, which seems to be one of the ways that in order to get this thing to stop has worked fairly well.
So, do you want it to continue? Do you think it's good for these alien abductions to be occurring in the first place?
Well, I think that again, it depends on the person themselves and their upbringing and what they feel that these things are. I mean, some people feel that they're angels, and so for them, it's a very positive thing. Other people feel it might be demons, and so they want it to stop. Um,
But
I think.
if you were to step back as a researcher, like Les Velez, like after
Mhm,
years of looking at this,
mhm.
if someone could say, "Stop all this at once," or let it continue, would you let it continue?
I would say that I think we've all had this experience. You have had this experience. I've had
Yes.
this experience. We just don't consciously remember it. I believe it's part of this universal process that goes on,
Mhm.
this higher consciousness that continues out there. So whether I say yes or no doesn't matter. It's happening.
So literally every single soul or every single human?
Well, I think that you can't separate them.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, meaning there's life elsewhere, right? Let's assume that. Um, is it like a human experience that we all have to have this exoconscious contact? Um, is that unique to us and a certain number of aliens, or is this literally like a universal experience for all souls throughout
Yeah,
the universe?
I believe that it's all interrelated and that you can't separate any of this. It's all uh, part and parcel of a greater whole.
Mhm.
that's going on. The overall consciousness, whether
Yeah.
you call it source or God or whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that. It has that ring of,
Mhm.
you know, a higher power or some other kind of, spirit that runs through all things. Does that mean we are under some sort of control?
I think that well, if my father was a fatalist. I guess he believed that there wasn't a whole hell of a lot that you could control in your life.
That's
But
kinda true. Yeah.
I don't feel quite that way. I feel that yeah, I think because psychics. This is very interesting because
Mhm.
I have a number of psychic friends, and they can look at you and tell you what's going to be going on in your life.
Well, let's hold it right there. We'll continue with, your psychic friends and that story when we come back on the other side of this quick break. This has already been a fascinating conversation with Les Velez. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now, streaming live on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel, rebroadcast every Tuesday, 2 a.m. on the UnX network. We will see you on the inverted upside down.
Hearts race to find the future. Convinced of efforts to deceive.
This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey all, Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UnX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com.
Got my own light, and it is burned bright. Till you took it in the middle of a winter night. My feelings so bright, will not lose light. If you kiss me on the lips and we both
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host. Taking us out of the break, music was provided by Septembrio. That's Septembrio with a Y.com. And we're back with Les Velez. So, Les, we left it off. You're about to tell a story
Mhm.
regarding psychics.
Yeah, they can tell you what's going to be going on in your life, and so that kind of says that something has been laid out. Um, you know, an interesting story that's kind of a corollary to that are these people that have had near-death experiences. And this medical doctor, a female medical doctor, was on a kayaking trip down in South America, and she went over a falls and got trapped at the bottom of the falls for over 30 minutes. Well, most people would be dead at this point. And
Yeah.
during this process, she saw these loving entities that were just so incredible that she didn't want to go back in any way, shape, or form. She wanted to go with them, and they told her, "No, no, no, you have to go back. There's things that you're going to be doing that are important." So here's one part of the process, saying that, okay, these entities know that there's something going on in her life that she needs to do. And then they told her that her son, when he turned 18, he would die. And so she came out of this thing. She recovered. Her son was small at the time.
Mhm.
She never said anything to him at that point, and kind of forgot about it. Well, when he turned 18, shortly thereafter, he got into a car accident and was killed.
It's terrible.
So,
Yeah.
and then, so you have to wonder how this is possible. Are things, larger things laid out, and then all these smaller things that you can do in between that you have control over?
Well,
Uh,
yeah. I mean,
it,
if you
it,
have to
it's,
live if you have to live with something like that for so long, um, and it came through some sort of psychic connection with these beings, does that mean maybe you can change your fate? And she just didn't know how, didn't have enough information. Because it seems to me if you can kind of peek into the future, then that's actually, to my mind, proof that the future isn't set in stone, because it would mean that there's a certain malleability to the construct of reality.
well, another happening with a psychic that I know, case that she was working on, was this woman came to her, and on a totally different subject, and all of a sudden she said to the woman that, your son is in trouble. And she says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I see that he's going to perhaps commit suicide." And the woman fessed up and said, "Yes, he's been under psychiatric care, and that we're dealing with it, and we got it under control."
Sure.
Well, shortly thereafter, her son finally committed suicide. So, I mean, even in cases where you think you might have control, you don't have control.
So that's where, gosh, I really struggle with this,
Hmm.
because
I can see. I
now
can
we're getting
see.
right, because we're getting into
I'm
the.
gonna mess you up tonight, there, Alan.
I knew it was going to be one of those nights tonight. Um, I put it in the comments before we even started the show. Uh, it's just that those epistemological questions, right? And for those questions to lead you to believe that there's really nothing you can change your reality, and yet you can't change your fate. Like, how do those two things work at the same time?
Believe me, I don't have the answers. I do not. I wish I did.
But
That's
you do believe that, right? That, like, you
well,
and I can, with our intention, with our efforts, we can kind of shape
I
our own.
I think that we do the best we can to do what we want to do, and we run into roadblocks. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, uh, I do actually an interview series myself. It's called the Opus interview series, where I put out the intention that I'd like to have an interview with a certain person, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't, but then eventually it does work out. It's a really interesting thing, about
Mhm.
intention. Um, so I think that all we can do is continue to do what we want to do, and if we run into roadblocks, we have to try to understand why we're running into those roadblocks and what we can do to overcome them. Um, you know, I. I I talk about synchronicities sometimes, and how when I'm thinking about the fact, gee, I would really like to have someone in our organization that has a certain ability, and
Mhm.
almost without exception, someone eventually, it may take a year or two even, uh, then someone shows up that has that capability. And so it always blows me away, and I always look up into the sky and say, "Thank you."
Yeah, well, it's funny. I do think that gratitude is one of the most powerful spiritual tools that we have. Um, but what it's kind of a question of the chicken or the egg,
Hmm.
because could you actually be thinking to yourself, "Oh, I want this," or "I want to meet this person or bring this into my life." You think you're manifesting it, but in reality, you already know it's going to happen, so on a subconscious level, and so therefore you ask for it almost un, unconsciously, knowing it's going to happen, or
Yeah, I
an
think
intuition. Yeah.
yeah, we're all connected. We are totally connected with one another,
Hmm.
whether we realize it or not. And I think that that connection, and especially if you continue to put it out there, eventually I mean, how many people have written books about intention? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, do
so
you have any favorites? Do you have any
oh
philosophies or
gosh,
lines of thinking?
gosh, I haven't read a book on intentions in years and years and years. I can't even remember their names, but uh, it's uh, it's the kind of thing that I why am I doing what I'm doing right
Yeah.
now? And there's been periods of time where I've said, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to
Yeah.
close the doors, so to speak, and it won't let me.
Well,
It won't let
but
me. It just it comes knocking on the door and saying, you can't stop now. You got to continue to do what you're doing.
are there any people like yourself, Kathleen Martin, the ER team
Mhm.
out of MUFON? Are are all of those people that are out there helping other experiencers that are drawn to that not experiencers themselves?
Yes,
Are
there
there,
are people that are not experiencers doing that work. Yes, um,
but
you
not
know,
conscious experiencers, because you're saying that we all to some degree have some kind of exoconscious contact. We just may not be aware of it.
right? Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
So there's
I
people that think, "Oh, I've never had alien contact," but they're out
right.
there, they're trying to help people. So maybe on some level,
Hmm. Sure, it's absolutely possible, Alan. Uh, as I say, this once you start going down this rabbit hole, anything is possible. Just
I
just like
love the rabbit hole.
just like Alice in Wonderland, once she went down that rabbit hole, look out.
And it's not really just one rabbit hole, that's the thing, you
Yes,
know?
that's
It
right.
splits
There's
off.
many
Mhm.
branches, just like rabbits do. They have many routes that they can go uh, to escape.
Yeah. Well, when you were first drawn to putting a group together of experiencers to deal with their trauma, to share their stories, um, that was right after you realized you were an experiencer, correct?
Well, again, I never found anything after those 3 regressions other than past lives. So,
Mhm.
I still, uh, you know, have question about that. But, the fact of the matter is that, um for whatever reason, I've been compelled to help these people as best I can, and so uh, back in 1994 is when Opus got started with myself and Dr. Eugene Lipson, who's since passed away, and we got contacted by a woman down in Carmel, California, that was based on an article that I was written up. It was Monterey Coast Weekly paper, and she was actually part of that article. And she contacted me and said, "I'd like to understand what's going on with my brainwaves when I'm in contact with these off-earthly entities." So I said, "That's interesting. I have no idea how I could possibly help her." And she said she was working with an emergency room doctor. Well, that kind of rang a bell for me because my friend Dr. Eugene Lipson was interested in meeting other doctors that were interested in the phenomena. So I called him up and said, "Hey, why don't we go down and see this person
Yeah.
and find out what's going on?" So we did. We went down one Saturday afternoon, and as we walked into her home, there was a picture on the wall, and she's standing on the back of this rather large vessel. And
Mhm.
I asked her, "What was this all about?" And she says, "Oh yeah, I was down in the Caribbean with this team of treasure hunters, and I was helping them with the hunt. And I said, well, how did you do that? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. So that started our afternoon off on one hell of a note. And she proceeded to tell us things about ourselves that there was no possible way that she could have known about
Sure.
what we were all about, who we were. I mean, all this information that she was putting out there. So
Mhm.
we came away from that afternoon saying, how could we possibly help people like this? And so that's when Opus was hatched. And then subsequently, in 1994, we officially became a nonprofit organization recognized by the IRS. And so,
It's pretty impressive.
so we've been chugging along here ever since. And,
Mhm.
you know, uh, shortly thereafter, we set up this online support group,
Mhm.
which has really been, I think, the most beneficial thing for these people, that they know that they're not alone, that other people are having similar circumstances in their lives,
Right. Right.
and that there we also have resources, referrals to hypnotherapists around the country,
Yeah.
and if they're looking for other types of help, we try to help them with that as well. Um, so the most recent thing we've just set up, and it's just literally happening now, we've set up a group called the EST, which is the Experiencer Support Team. And these are people that have experience working with abductees, people claiming to have contact with non-human intelligences, doing sort of a triage with these people. So they have someone that they can talk to besides other experiencers. And then those people have the ability to give them referrals to these therapists, various types of therapists. And that's something that we're really quite excited about right now.
That is exciting. So, are there any benefits to being an not nonprofit?
Well, I think that the thing that's a benefit is the fact that if people donate, which is how we survive on donations, it's
Mhm.
tax deductible,
Right.
and so we haven't made a ton of money. Believe me, this is this is not a field where most people don't make a lot of money in it,
Mhm.
um,
So it's
and
it's the tax deductions for alien abductions.
yes, exactly. That's a
That
good
should be your tag. Should be your
bumper
tagline,
sticker.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we
I
all
like
get
that.
that?
Let me write
Can we
that
all get
down. Hold on.
that? Um, so okay, now, you know, y are these psychic people, um, able to communicate better with these exoconscious beings than the average person? Like, because it's just true. There's some of us that are better, and they're psychic mediums that are very accurate, and some of us are not. But so, is the psychic medium better at communicating with aliens?
Well, I think that what we found, and this is something that Gary Nolan at Stanford University and Kit Green, ex-CIA, have been working with people that have had contact with non-human intelligences, and they call these people antenna people, where they can transmit and receive messages. Uh, and they've also noticed that in their brains,
Mhm.
that the connections between the top of the caudate and the bottom, or the top of the bottom of the caudate and the top of the putamen area, there's a lot
Mhm.
more connections with these people. Uh, and it runs in families. It's not just one person, but then they find out that their parents have that capability, or their grandparents have had that capability.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
it becomes the old chicken and the egg type of a thing. Were these people have that capability based on some manipulation of their DNA at
Mhm.
some point in the past, and that's why these people are being followed uh, on a regular basis, generation by generation, uh,
Mhm.
or is it just simply that these people do have that capability. It has nothing to do with any interaction with the aliens. So, as they say, it's the old chicken and the egg thing. Who knows? We haven't gotten that far, and that kind of also goes to the hybrid situation where people claim that they're hybrids. And Gary Nolan again at Stanford University says that well, it's really difficult to say whether or not you're hybrid because we have no sample supposedly of alien DNA
Oh,
to
well, yes,
compare.
and I've heard that there is some DNA that is either attributable to here to unknown hominid that we may have interbreeded with, or something else. Um, and I don't know where that is. I heard that some years ago, but maybe it is Nodley. I mean, I'm not what is it, Homo
Homo sapien, Homo
Nadelis?
erectus.
No, why is the name slipping me? Anyway, not Homo, not Neanderthal,
Mhm.
Denisovan. That's what I was
Oh,
looking for.
Denisovan. Okay, yeah.
So we now, first it was just human, then it
Mhm.
was Neanderthal mixed with us, then Denisovan mixed with us. So who knows what else might actually be mixed with us? The thing is, a lot of the reports are that this sort of genetic manipulation is still ongoing. And I guess now that we're actually able to run DNA, and we've got millions, right? I mean, these companies have
Mhm.
millions and millions of DNA records now for individuals. You would think that they would be able to start seeing any changes in the DNA. So do the aliens stop?
Hmm.
Because we could say, wait a minute, something changed here.
Well, I think one of the things again, I keep coming up with Gary Nolan's name because he's done a lot of work in this area. That there's been changes in our DNA every 600,000 years, and based on that, and based on where we are today, our planet would have to be a lot older than what they say it is. They say it's like 4 billion years old, but it would actually have to be 9 billion years old in order for us to be where we are with regard to our DNA. So that what does that mean? Does that mean definitely that there's been some manipulation going on that speeded up that process?
I mean,
Which
how much do we really know though? Because I mean, the cool thing about science is that in our fields, in the paranormal, in the forbidden history field, right? It's science says here are the parameters, and then we find out. Wait, well, we can stretch that a little bit more. We can stretch that a little bit more, and so even if we look at what we think the evolutionary speed of a human evolution or DNA evolution would be, maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's actually quicker from a certain point.
Yeah, and that's just like our present day understanding of physics, where people say, well, you can't go faster than the speed of light. You can't do
Right.
this. These UAPs are. It's impossible for them to do what they're doing. Uh,
Exactly.
I mean, so again, our understanding is only this much, and it needs to be that much, and we
Exactly.
just haven't figured that out yet.
And also, if we're bringing time into the equation, you know, what if there's a manipulation of time itself that can attributed to our increased, you know, cranial explosion as a species?
Mhm.
Like you said, I mean, if can you manipulate through time in a sense?
Well, I think that that's exactly what's happening. I think there is a manipulation of space-time, and that's how these entities are doing what they're doing, and these craft that we see are doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
Supposedly, before COVID shut everything down, I had lunch with Lou Elizondo, and he basically outlined the fact that they understand how these craft operate,
Mhm.
interaction between the skin of the craft and a rather small power source, but it's also a manipulation of the space time. situation, so that
Yeah.
these craft can do what they're doing. So I mean, I think they're starting to get a handle on, and they probably definitely know a hell of a lot more than
Hmm.
they're telling us. And the thing for me, I talking about Lou again, I think he's doing a great job in bringing this forward in the way he has, that presenting it as a possible threat, because I think that's the only way that our government would ever do anything, if it wasn't for that. And and whether or not it's truly a threat is a whole nother ball game. I tend to believe that, again, that's a mixed bag. I think we probably have situations where most of these entities or uh, craft are not hostile, but then there may be some that are. Again, I don't think you can say, like Stephen Greer says they're all good, and then Bud Hopkins and the late Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs say they're all bad, and so but I think there's a mixture going on there, but anyway, I
Well,
think the next step beyond the UAP thing, understanding
mhm,
what's going on there, is working with these people that are in communication with the aliens. Whether they're greys, whether they're mantid, whether they're reptoids, whether they're Nordics, whether they're whatever. It's fascinating, and it's unfortunate that most of the people that have had contact don't know where to turn, don't have people they can talk to, and
mhm.
are relegated to uh, basically trying to understand this on their own, and which has not proved to be very successful in many cases.
Do you know who you are in contact with?
Who I am in contact with?
What alien species, what they look like?
Oh, well, I have no conscious recollection of being in contact with anybody. Uh,
Zero conscious recollection. Okay.
yes, correct. Yeah. Uh, uh,
So you're going with the understanding that by default you're an experiencer because we all are, right?
well, yeah, I truly believe that, and for whatever reason, I have not been allowed to believe, or not believe, but to
Mm,
recollect what has happened, or it's just a timing issue, because a lot of these people have had experiences when they were young and are
mm,
now coming to us. We're getting a lot of 50 and 60 and 70-year-old people coming to us and saying, "I had this experience back then, but now I need to talk about it. I need to tell people about it." People are writing books. They're getting on shows like yours.
mhm,
They're trying to tell people, "Hey, folks, there's we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be
mm.
better to one another. We need to love each other. We need to, again, all wonderful thoughts,
Yeah,
wonderful
yeah.
ideas that we definitely now need more than ever, with what we're doing to our planet and doing to ourselves in the process.
Yeah, Lisa O'Hara, published her book Furious, Abducted and Furious, I think was the title.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
she was like, this ain't right. This is not
Yeah.
this is not okay.
Yeah.
And then, on my show and other shows, other experiencers are kind of there as like a support group for her and saying like, maybe you can kind of recontextualize this, and this is what it's like for us. On the one hand, I guess that could be healthy and supportive. On the other hand, is there gaslighting involved? Unintentional gaslighting.
Yeah, I mean, the people have said, well, that these are all wonderful, positive ideas that people come away with, but is it some subterfuge on some level,
Yeah.
to have the person act in a certain way,
Mhm.
to allow certain things to happen to them. Um, Yeah, and by the way, Lisa is a member of the support group.
Oh,
She's been
there
a
you go.
member of
Yeah.
our support group for a long time, and
Mhm.
I have her book here too. Uh, it's interesting that you know there's so many facets to this phenomena, and
Yeah.
we don't have all the answers. I'm not even sure we have any answers. It's just that we need to support each other and allow these ideas to flow. And
Mhm.
that's one thing. We are very neutral when it comes to this. We allow people to say what they say. We don't want people in the support group to criticize anybody in the group. Everybody's opinion is their opinion, and that's relative, and to their makeup, and so we just need to honor that.
Yeah. Although I would disagree to a degree. I do think that we have answers. We just don't know how to interpret them yet. It's kind of like,
Ah,
we're getting these pieces of a puzzle,
mhm.
but we're missing enough of the puzzle pieces to still be confused.
Well,
So
yeah, I
if
like I like
we
the
keep working on
terminology puzzle. I like the
it. Mhm.
terminology puzzle because I think there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and they're all eventually going to be connected, and then you'll get the whole picture. But
All
I
right.
don't
Well,
think we
let's
have the whole picture yet.
no, we don't. We're working on it, and we'll continue with building that picture on the other side of the second and last break tonight. Thanks so much, Les, for hanging, and everyone hang with us until the second hour. It'll be well worth it because there's so much more to talk about, including some of the behaviors and features of these craft and aliens, a lot of mysteries, and Les with decades of experience can certainly provide some very fascinating insight. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on the Paranormal Pop YouTube channel. I will see you on the inverted upside down.
Tell me why, with 12 sides, the odds are that we die. Roll the die as you hide. I can't find you on the other side of the line.
This coffee is delicious. Is that a UFO? I'm actually seeing a UFO. This coffee is awesome. That's why they call it alien coffee bean. Is this even made on Earth? Hey all, Paranormal Now will be syndicated on the UnX network, the new mainstream, where you can find your favorite hosts and shows on the cutting edge of ufological and paranormal news and topics. Listen for Paranormal Now rebroadcast on the X at 2 a.m. EST Fridays, 11 p.m. PST Thursdays at unxnetwork.com.
On and again, the signs keep on coming, they point to the end, but I hold on so tight.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. I am so glad to be hanging out here with you all tonight. How are you doing? I hope you are enjoying these philosophical quandaries of the high strangeness. And every week, it's always something new. And tonight, Les is bringing to us something of a different perspective. So here we are back again with Les Velez. We'll continue this conversation. If you are a fan of this channel, please like, comment down below, and do subscribe. and click the notification bell. I really appreciate all of your support. So, Les, oftentimes we have these very strange interactions with these exoconscious beings. People see orbs, just
Mhm.
UFO craft, flying in ways that are odd, like they feel like they're being watched. Things that are going through walls, pets that act crazy. What what are some of the other phenomena and side effects of these close encounters?
Well, you mentioned, orbs and things like that. Well, one of the first phase of this Omega 4 study that we did when we went out to therapists, um, the thing they came back with, the number one thing that people talked about were grays, and I, I think almost without exception, whenever you have a gray, you usually have a mantis type, or you have a Nordic type, or you have a reptilian that's involved, and uh, there must be like some kind of a store out in the universe where all these other entities go, and it's almost like it's an iPhone store, but it's a gray store, and they all pick up these biological robotic entities, which seem to be the
Interesting.
grays, and they utilize them
Mhm.
because we are very violent people. Humans are pretty violent, and
Mhm.
I've had cases where people have talked about, well, they bit the grays, they tore off an arm in one case, um, and these
Whoa.
entities would just go on their business, and one would leave and another one would come. Um, so the
And
second thing, the second
yeah.
thing that they talked about was orbs. That people see these orbs. The
Mhm.
third thing was interdimensionals, shadow people, things of that nature, energy beings, things of that nature.
Mhm.
And then the fourth thing was ghosts. And so there's definitely a correlation. These are all
Ghosts.
ghosts.
I'm sorry, Les. Ghosts related to contact with aliens, or
In other words, these people have seen also ghosts.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And which, could be shadow people, which also people talk
Mhm.
about. So
Right.
maybe it's an interpretation situation going on there.
It's interesting your analogy with an iPhone store. Like they just go up and buy these,
Grays.
these good little gray entities. Yeah. It reminds me of kind of Star Wars and the use of droids, right? Like
Yes.
they almost have a kind of a personality, but they're not really alive. And they do the bidding of humans. So maybe on this intergalactic scale, these are really efficient uh, I don't know, not droids, but biological.
Yeah.
How would you describe them? Like if they're
Yeah.
kind of robotic, but if they're
y-
part biology.
Yeah. There's a biological component to it, evidently, because the fluids, come out. But then you've seen movies like Alien,
Mm.
or
Yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah,
you'll see, these robots that are there. When they rip off a head, all these fluids come flying out. So
yeah.
very similar to that.
So they are always doing the bidding of some other race.
Seem
How
to, yes.
how many races have you kept track of at this
Oh
point?
my goodness. Oh my goodness. I Over the years, I've heard everything from 5 or 6 to 300
Yeah,
various races that have
yeah.
interacted with us at one time or another.
When in your experience or support groups, I mean, can you count on two hands the number of races that you've heard firsthand?
Basically, what I've just said, the mantid type, the reptilian type, the Nordics,
Yeah.
the grays, the tall grays, the whites, tall whites. Those seem to be the predominant ones.
Yeah.
And there's various. Just as we have various versions of humans, there's various versions of reptilians, and uh,
VHDs.
yeah. So you have many people have drawn what they've seen, and you get quite a variety
Yeah.
of but the basic thing is the fact that it's reptilian in nature.
I've been hearing a lot about Arcturians, the blue-skinned aliens lately.
Right.
Do they play any kind of prominent role that you're aware of?
Yeah, they're mentioned too, and as a pretty significant race. I've had a friend that drew what she believed was her interaction with an Arcturian. Yeah.
And are they any of these here on Earth, and not actually extraterrestrials? Do they live here? Do they live underground?
Well, the reptilians seem to have a presence underground here on the planet. I don't know of any other race that is. You hear about the ant people.
Mhm.
uh, that the indigenous tribes talk about,
Sure, like the
that they've
Hopi and Pueblo,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that they've interacted with. But
Mhm.
other than that, then you talk about the hybrids. Okay, that supposedly are hybrid, have been hybridized to such a degree that you can't. Maybe you're an alien, Alan. I don't know.
Yeah,
uh,
I did have someone who is a psychic and an experiencer say that, I have some part alien in me, so I don't know. I don't,
Yeah, yeah. With David Jacobs, one of his recent books, he talks about hybrids, that
Mhm.
they have been hybridized to the extent that you can't tell them from you or me.
Yeah.
And again, and people talk about the fact that they feel that they're hybrid. Uh, um, Cynthia Crawford was a person that had come out and said that she was a hybrid, and I knew her. She's
Cindy
since.
Crawford came out and said this.
Oh yeah, and she
Wow, I don't remember
and
that.
and she her the inside her physical internal organs were totally messed up. They were in different places and everything. So there was some physical component to her fact, and she firmly believed that she was a hybrid. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book by Helen Luttrell called Rachel's Eyes. It's a story about her daughter going to college with a hybrid. The hybrid was a roommate of hers, and she did look very different. Always wore big hats, sunglasses, uh,
Mhm.
ate food that was delivered by the military to her. Um, and it's an absolutely mind-blowing book. And i- i- where we basically have a whole military unit that does nothing but retrieve uh, crashed UFOs with that have actually, most of them have aliens in them that are alive, and that there's a program going on where they do hybridization process with these aliens. So it's quite a story. It's quite a story, but
Yeah, I have to apologize. When you first said Cynthia Crawford, I was thinking Cindy Crawford.
oh no no no
And
no
so
no
I
no
thought,
no
the supermodel?
no,
Um,
but there are many
mhm.
people in the in our acting community that famous people that have had experiences.
Right. And I think they're in a field, a career where they can be more open about that and talk about that and still get work. Whereas for other people, I know people keep saying that the stigma is going away. Well, the stigma might be going away for UAP discussion, our aliens visiting Earth discussion, but to say that one believes in alien abductions or to say that one has been abducted,
Mhm.
I don't. I think we've got a long way to go for that to be okay to talk about in the office.
Well, I think, yeah, you have to worry about the fact that number one, yes, a lot of these people can't talk to even family members because they think that they're crazy, or they can't talk to their clergy. And you certainly don't want to talk to people in your office. Now, the interesting thing in my when I was working in my office, people knew that what I was doing, and they were quite interested in the whole subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and of course, I wasn't saying that I had been abducted and I had contact or anything like that, but I was helping these people, so that might be a little bit different. But yeah, it's a real concern, uh, and it goes to the fact that again, our mental health community is not doing a very good job of really dealing with these people in most cases.
So
More
how do
and
they?
more. Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Liz.
No, I
I was
was
gonna
just.
say, how do they we're in tune. How do they treat how do psychologists treat individuals that say they are abductees, but they don't believe them?
Well, first of all, that would exclude them from even working with those people if they don't believe them, because one of the things that they we came back with this phase one of the omega 4 study was that the therapist needs to be, first of all, to reduce the stress that these people are having. Okay, that's the number one thing that people want to have happen. Second thing is they have to be an empathetic listener, that they have no judgment with regard to the phenomena. And then they can deal with whether it's PTSD or any other thing that's going on with them at that time. Yeah, yeah. The minute you say that a therapist doesn't believe it, um, it's probably precludes them. They need to be open minded to really be able to work with these people, because the minute they have that they don't believe it, that's going to taint the whole process.
Yeah. How are these beings performing acts like walking through walls?
Well, and again, Adam Burns in my book talks about that, where they actually disassemble you, atom by atom, and that's way you can go through these spaces because you've become atomized, so to speak, and that seems to be the way that they can do these things, and the same thing goes for them. Uh, I had a case that is an ongoing case, has been going on for almost 15 years now,
Mhm.
where we're trying to get corroborating evidence that supposedly happened to this person when they were 4 or 5 years old, uh, and they were abducted, and they had gone through a window with their blanket, and they went through the window, but the blanket got stuck in the window, in the glass.
Oh,
and
in the
so
glass.
yeah, and so the military supposedly came and took the window out of the home, and so uh, and this story is just
And just
mind
took the
blowing that
yeah.
that had gone on, and supposedly some of this was in the local paper,
Mhm.
and we tried to find the articles about the time frame when this occurred, and we could not find any of those papers. There was papers all around those dates, but
Yeah.
those specific dates were gone. And
That's crazy.
supposedly, this person told us that the military had come in and basically taken this is a local paper, of course, not a national paper or anything,
Mhm.
taken all the issues of that paper and basically took them away. So it,
Well,
it, it
what should one do now? Like, if someone is having reoccurring, contact abductions,
mhm.
how do you coach someone and say, "This is what you should do," afterwards?
Well, I think the thing is to understand what their feeling is about it. Again, and it also depends on where they are in the process, because the first stages of contact are usually quite traumatic,
Yeah.
and so uh, you know most people certainly don't know where to turn. They may think they're going crazy. Some of them go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, and find out
Yeah.
that they're not crazy, and then they don't. So what do they do next? Well, again, depending upon where they are, because there's usually about 3 stages that go on. First stage is quite traumatic. Second stage, they come to accept what's going on. The third stage is it stops, and it's like the Stockholm syndrome. Why aren't they coming to get me anymore? Well, what's wrong with me now? And so that's why our organization has been set up, is to help people, whatever stage they happen to be in,
Yeah.
to be able to uh, have a more normal life and understand that they're not alone, that these things are happening to other people, very similar types of things are happening to other people, and that 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out the other end okay. It's not going to be an issue for you. And so once they understand that, then it's a calming influence for sure.
What about as far as um, validation of one's own event? Is there a protocol, anything that they can do afterwards to collect some sort of evidence, at least if nothing else, for themselves or for their loved ones, to say like, "Hey, there's something. Look, there's something going on here."
Yeah, I think that there's certainly physical types of things that go on. Matter of fact, let me just read a few of these things for you.
Yeah, like any kind of trace evidence or
Yeah, well, you have implants. Implants are one of the big things that people talk about. That the late Dr. Roger Lear did quite a bit of work in that regard. And let me read uh, his analysis of
sure. Yeah.
the implants. Uh, There's no inflammatory rejection reaction by the body to these foreign objects. Number one, no
Mm.
visible portal of entry. Collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object, an outer coating of ceramic biological material, a
Mhm.
metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue, the emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band, electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss, composition of meteoric iron 66, rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which is very rare and hard to find in the Earth's crust.
Mhm.
Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involved elements did not come from Earth. Um, Gold spheres with unknown function. Um, Metallic caverns that are no larger than a diameter of one atom. Resistance to ordinary cutting techniques such as metallic sawing or severing with a cutting instrument. One of the specimens had to be cut with a laser. Um, so, I mean, it's very unusual.
What
Uh,
are what are what are 10 milligauss?
oh, that's an electromagnetic field.
Okay.
It's a small electromagnetic field that surrounds the object itself.
And we don't admit that,
No,
or we admit
no,
lower
no,
levels.
nothing. Whoops. Where do we go? Where do we go? Hello.
I'm right here.
I
And
know, but
so
I lost you. Where are you? Uh-oh.
alright. Well, we can still hear you. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you have all these different side effects on the body or implants. But what about in the space itself? Is there something that you can do? Because if you are being taken out of your bed and pulled through a wall, your
Hmm.
body, your
Right.
atoms being deconstructed and reconstructed,
Hmm.
there's got to be some effect on the space itself, on the materials surrounding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have more 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 earthly effects where they come back and they have different clothes on. um, they have their clothes on, but it's inside out, or some weird thing
Mhm.
that has occurred to their bed bedding materials, stains, various types of stains that have been found that seem to
Yeah.
disappear rather quickly. Various physical things that seem to be occurring. So yeah, there's evidence. There's evidence.
And
And
even like Betty Hill's dress, there's
yeah,
evidence, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think when you start adding up all these different things, whether it's implants, whether it's, you know, coming back with somebody else's clothes, even or no clothes when you went to bed with clothes on, uh, and
Sure. Yeah.
you don't sleepwalk, and or you have a couple. Now here's one for you. Robert Salas. You familiar with his name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I gave a presentation to an experiencer group at last year's MUFON symposium, and he was in there with his wife. And afterwards, he came up to me, and says, "Can I talk to you, privately?" And I said, "Sure."
Mhm.
And sat down at my table, and he proceeded to tell me about he and his wife were both abducted, and that he had total conscious memory of the whole situation.
Mhm.
uh, Talked about this blue light that appeared in their bedroom, and that they were taken, and they were brought on board the craft, and his wife came back and had healing ability, which she never had before. She was able to heal people afterwards, which is another factor that happens. And people are healed. Uh, I was flying back from a MUFON symposium. This is years ago.
Mhm.
That was in Richmond, Virginia, and I was sitting next to this woman who turned out to be the head of St. Jude Hospital, and in a previous hospital where she worked. Uh, this woman had cancer, and they were going to be operating on her. And the morning of the operation, the doctors came in to wheel her in and, do
Mhm.
final preparations. And she says, I don't need the operation. And so they thought she was freaking out. And they said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, they came last night and they took care of it." And they said, "Okay." So anyway, they didn't believe her, and
Of course. Yeah.
they rolled her in, and then one of the doctors said, "Well, let's double check anyway." And
Mhm.
so they did an X-ray of the area where they were going to be operating, and sure enough, the tumor was gone.
See, now
So
that is very impactful because it's not like, okay, someone has had experiences with contacts, ET contact, and then they have some illness, they go to a hospital, and oh, it miraculously disappeared, and they attribute it to the ET contact. In this case, the fact that she, in advance of the conversation with the doctor, said, "I already know
mhm.
it's been taken care of by these things," and then they confirm that. Now you're in a place where they can't deny your truth, but I suppose they do anyway.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Martin, I think in one of her books, she talks about this orb that went into a person who had cancer, and after this process, his cancer was gone. Um, and I've heard just the opposite, where people have had significant physical effects of these orbs going into their body. Matter of fact, in a recent book by uh, Combe Keller and George Knapp, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon,
Mhm.
they talk about these orbs having effects on people, creating certain diseases in people. So, you know, again, it's the good ones and the bad ones.
Yeah.
You have both sides of the coin. Uh,
Well, some of the contact with craft, sometimes people have, especially historically, have come away with radiation burns,
yes.
heat burns, this sort of thing. Are those the extraterrestrials or are those us?
Um,
Those craft?
yeah, that's a good question. It's certainly possible. You have the Case Landrum case that those two ladies got significant radiation burns and subsequently died. And there's that craft, and there's a whole bunch of helicopters following it. It's almost like one of our experiments or test craft might have had an issue.
Mhm.
Or it could have been alien. It could have been alien. I don't have a definitive answer on that. That's for sure. But James McCampbell, who was a physicist out in California, who I knew very well,
Hmm.
uh, and subsequently passed away. I talk about his analysis of the physical effects on people, and most of it has to do with microwave energy, X-ray, even gamma ray type energy that people have come into contact with in uh, close contact with these objects. So yeah, it's like you want to be careful how close you get to these things, because you
Sure.
could have some significant effects. I mean, and it's all over the place as far as hearing, seeing, tasting. People sometimes talk about metallic taste in their mouth. Well, that could be also a cause of microwave energy that's causing
Mhm.
that. So you have all types of effects that could be associated with microwave energy.
With all these energies that are a part of this entire equation of interaction between humans and these other things, beings, can we use energy, the human mind, the body, any of these waves to somehow kind of ride a a a a, a vibration to enhance our communication with these other things?
Well, if you're talking about, they talk about raising our frequency as
Sure, I was
individuals.
thinking, like, if you don't have to raise your frequency, right? Like, you could just kinda tap into something else, and that would kinda help you direct your thoughts, but maybe that's the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I think that it's all a matter of how you manipulate your consciousness. And
Right, yeah, yeah.
people talk about meditation as one of
Mhm,
those routes to do just that. As you go within, you understand, your body, your thoughts, and then you can concentrate, focus those things to be able to communicate in other ways, with one another and with them. It goes back to these people that they call antenna people, where they have this ability to communicate at
mhm.
will. Matter of fact, that reminds me, last year's symposium, Nick Pope was the kickoff
Kin
speaker, and he talked about the fact that, well, you know, I hope these UAPs are either the Russians or the Chinese, because we could pick up the telephone and talk to them. And I cornered him later, and I said, Nick, I said, you're missing a very important factor. I said, these people that have contact with these aliens can communicate telepathically, and they're doing
Yeah.
it all the time. So, you know, uh, anyway,
Well,
um,
what's the point of doing it all the time? What's the point of all the contact? And then just let these people kinda hang in the wind as experiencers and not validate for the rest of the world, like, "Hey, you know what? They have been talking to us."
well, one of the things the aliens often talk about,
Mhm,
these entities, that either you can't understand right now the purpose of this, or you
mhm.
will understand what the purpose of this is at a later date. And that seems to be a common thing that they tell people, because people ask them, so why are you doing this? What is going on? um, and that goes back to the whole hybridization process, and that goes back to, why are you taking my semen, or why are you taking my eggs, or why are
Mhm,
you doing, all these putting all these probes in me,
mhm,
and I often say I think it's like a learning situation for the
Yeah.
aliens. That well, people say, well, they're so smart. What they just do it once and they know everything. Well, I think what it is, it's like it's the next generation of aliens that are coming here to understand. It's like a college, where you go to
Mhm.
college or you go to Earth and you understand that here you have this population and this is what we've done in the past, but now
Mm.
maybe you can do something more to better understand them. And so we're not at the top of the food chain, folks.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
they seem to be because of their abilities to do what they do, and so just like when we take a dolphin out of their environment and then we take blood and
Mhm.
we tag them and we throw them back in the water, and then a year later we come back and pull them back out, check
Mhm.
the tag, check their blood again, measure them, do a whole bunch of things, and check their temperature and throw them back in the water.
Yeah.
It's the same type of a thing. It's just
So
the
what you're
same.
saying, so it sounds like what you're saying is that these aliens are saying to these people that you'll understand the purpose one day.
Mhm.
Therefore, if you have a purpose, you don't need validation from anyone else or the rest of society.
I'm not sure I
Because,
understand your question.
well, like on a personal level,
Hmm.
if I have a purpose, if I feel I have my own personal purpose and I'm going to do something,
Hmm.
I'm better at that when I don't need validation. Right. And sometimes I don't want validation because I'm doing my thing, whether it's a business pursuit or a spiritual pursuit, whatever it is. So contactees aren't the aliens aren't providing evidence for the rest of the world to say, look, these contactees have been in communication with us aliens, because according to the aliens, they shouldn't need validation from anything outside of what's occurring to them.
Well, I think what I see is happening is that a different way to maybe answer you on this is that um, we're going to reach critical mass at some point where all of us have been abducted. Like I said earlier, I think we all have, to a certain degree, had an experience. Um, and the Roper poll back in '92 came out with the fact that back in those days there was probably 6 million of us that have already been abducted, and now move forward in time, and then this is a worldwide phenomena that there's millions and millions of people that have had these experiences. And if they're all coming out of this experience, or at least 80% of them are coming out of this experience with very positive feelings and thoughts, then I think eventually we're going to be living in a much better world, which is a great outcome, which is an absolute great outcome. And hopefully, they're not blowing smoke up our tailpipe in all of this that they're doing.
How do you, but how do you know? How do you trust that? How do you know they're not being manipulative?
You don't know. You don't
Okay.
know. That's part of the issue. There's obviously two schools of thought on this: is that we are being
Mhm.
manipulated, and then others are no. They're doing wonderful things. They're curing a lot of us, or they're giving us healing abilities. These are all wonderful things. So you have to say that if they're have more nefarious ideas in mind, then they're doing a damn good job of hiding it.
Yes, but you can be a prisoner of war in a more advanced, country or society. Get sick and they treat you, and you know, you live. And maybe you wouldn't have lived in your other country. It doesn't mean that they really care all that much about you. You're just a pawn. Um,
Yeah.
so should we be doing CE5? Should people actually be reaching out and calling down?
Well,
these things?
yeah, and I know of people that have done exactly that, and had some pretty amazing experiences, and they were very positive experiences. Um, uh, uh, Paola Harris had a remarkable experience when she was with this Peruvian guy. I forget his name, that does these types of things. Had nothing to do with Stephen Greer, but and this entity came in and they chatted, I guess, and then he disappeared. But uh, you know, it's an incredible phenomena, and trying to wrap your brain around all of this in our three-dimensional world is a little difficult. And
But we do apparently have uh, material from crashed craft. Do you believe that?
yes, yeah,
You do. So there's
I
truly a
believe
physical.
we have physical craft, we have aliens, we have
Mhm.
most of them are dead, I believe, but I
Yeah.
believe that there are hybrids and aliens that have been recovered that are alive still. Um, and do I have definitive proof? Well, I go back to Helen Luttrell's book, and she talks about that in her book, Rachel's Eyes. Um, and so, you know, over the years, my window of believability was maybe this wide, and now it gets wider and wider as I listen to more stories about this phenomena. I was maybe even skeptical in the very beginning, but
Yeah.
after listening to these people and seeing how they've reacted to this phenomena, and these people come to us and say, you're probably going to think I'm crazy, but I had this experience, and I don't know what to do about it. And they're not, they don't want to be exposed. They don't want to. They don't want to. Go on shows or write books or things like that. Although some of them now are starting to have that feeling that they need to do this, but not only need to do it, but they're being told to do it. In other words,
Right.
you need to sit down and put this in writing and talk about it.
Yeah.
A la this Adam Burns. Yeah, if you read any story in my book, that's the one that you want to read about his experience. It's a very phenomenal uh, tale about his encounter.
How far back does this phenomena go?
Oh, forever. This is eons. This goes back eons. I mean, we have Paleolithic cave drawings of craft and of aliens. The American Indians have their petroglyphs. They actually show them. And the Aborigines all over the world. There's uh, cave paintings and things of that nature that show this going on, and that's only maybe 40,000 years ago, but it goes back to all the Romans talk about it. These shining shields in the sky, and uh, it's all over the place, and people talk about it in various ways. They talk about dragons, and which perhaps might have been craft of some sort because it was breathing fire, and things of that nature.
Mhm.
uh, you know
But do you think that MUFON, um, to be taken more seriously, should steer away from some of the more high strangeness, ancient aliens, alien abduction, uh, paranormal crossovers, um, or
and
or
that's a
is it healthier in the long run to keep that integrated?
well, I was a proponent, and really in 2007, as I mentioned earlier, I spoke with James Carrion, who was the international director at that time of
Mhm.
MUFON, and I said, "You guys are missing the boat. You're not really talking or helping these people that claim that they've had contact with non-human intelligences." And they had no protocol whatsoever to set up. So I volunteered Opus to help, and so I started to get phone messages that was redirected from MUFON to me, and started working with these people, and doing that triage and saying, tell me your story, tell me what you need, what's going on. And I
Right.
have some incredible phone recordings of these people that you can hear it in their voice how traumatic the event was, and that they're scared, they're having real issues, and they need
That's
help. So uh, subsequently, based on what I was doing, MUFON, finally the light bulb went off, and they decided, okay, and Kathleen Martin started the ERT group in there. Um, and as you mentioned in my bio, before that, though, I had started the ERT, the AERT, the Abduction Experiencer Research Committee, and out of that committee, we put that report together that MUFON funded. We called the Omega-3 study, where we
Mhm.
took 71 experiencers and 51 people as a control group, and came up with some of those facts that I mentioned earlier. So now, one of the things that's going on within MUFON is the fact that they don't want to talk about the paranormal. They want to stick with the UFO nuts and bolts type of a thing. And the ERT is, I think, kind of getting in a position of being a little somewhat in the back seat of the operation. Uh,
Is that considered paranormal?
evidently,
Uh,
evidently, I, you know, paranormal is a very wide-reaching term, and some people like it, some people don't like it.
yeah.
When I came up with that, actually, I came up with the name of our organization, and
Mhm.
paranormal was an okay term back then, but
But do you know
the
what it is, Les? It's the I think someone brought this up recently, like the thousands of ghost shows that are paranormal this, paranormal that, paranormal,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
it's really kind of, distorted the word a little bit because back when I was growing up, paranormal included the Bermuda Triangle,
yeah,
UFOs. It
yeah,
was very broad because it
right,
literally just means above normal or side
yeah,
parallel to normal. So
exactly.
it's a very broad term, and it's been
Yeah.
kind of pigeonholed, I think.
Yeah. So I think what they want to just keep it, if you're talking about the abduction thing, then that, and,
Mhm,
and it relates to UFOs and things like that. Okay, but don't talk to me about ghosts. Don't talk to me about, uh,
mhm,
spirits or whatever, demons or angels or anything like that. But
mhm.
you can't relegate, you can't do that, because as I mentioned earlier, that we talk about the fact that people say, well, we talk about grays, we talk about orbs, we talk about interdimensionals, we talk about ghosts, when it and it's all related to the same phenomena.
We have a question from YouTube chat from Aaron Tyson. Says, "Do they offer help for people who have bad experiences with cryptids?" And I think this
Yeah.
is referring to the ER team.
Yeah. Um, when you say cryptids like Wolfman or Bigfoot or people like that, what we would do is we would refer you to a group that is involved with that specific cryptid. If you contact us, in some cases we would know who they are. In some cases we don't,
Mhm,
because typically, uh, even though our name says paranormal, which includes a whole lot of different things, most of the people that have contacted us have had your typical abduction type of scenario, contact or experience with non-human intelligences,
mhm.
as opposed to cryptids. But it doesn't mean that we're not open to that. So that's the short answer, I guess.
Are we misunderstanding any of these cryptids? Are they in fact? aliens or extraterrestrials?
Well, I think that, like Bigfoot, for instance, a lot of cases with Bigfoot, there's also UFO sightings, and how these incidents seem to correlate, and then also how quickly the Bigfoot Sasquatch seems to be able to disappear in a
Mhm.
big flash of light or something. Light is also seems to, in a lot of cases, be part of that. So, who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe it came through with a craft and disappeared with a craft. It's very very possible because they seem to be very elusive, and you would think after all these years and people claiming that they've shot them and everything, that you would actually have a real body to be seen. And we're not saying that we should shoot them.
Of
I
course
don't
not.
I don't want
Mm.
to go that route. But people that have claimed that they've done that. So anyway.
I Is there any reason to believe that there's an increase in high strangeness phenomena?
Uh, You know, I think it's always been going on, and I think that the fact of the matter is that we have been able to, with our technology, uh, been able to, with our phones. I mean, everybody's got an iPhone. It's got a camera in it. I mean, you have so many
Mhm.
pictures that are coming through, on your smartphone. Our internet is another communication device, and so we are communicating like we've never communicated before.
Mhm.
Excuse me, and it's something that I think is certainly ratcheted up uh, the fact that there's cases, and whether or not it's really increased in number, or is just because we can communicate better and we see
Yeah.
these things.
Well, you use one of my favorite terms, critical mass. And I wonder if we're going to is there this critical mass where so many people start seeing these things that the veil really begins to fade away for all of us? I mean, is there a future where we're living side by side with all of these strange beings?
Well, I think that supposedly, according to Haim Eshed, this retired Israeli general that was high up the ladder and very
Yeah.
well respected, wrote this book recently, and talks about the aliens are here. That we have bases on the moon, Mars, and that the aliens don't want us to reveal anything at this point because we're not ready. We don't understand space, according to them. So, I think the bottom line is that, as I mentioned earlier, the critical mass that we're going to eventually have, you'll wake up one morning and say, "Oh yeah, they're here. We know that. It's certainly happened." And you know, so I think that people talk
Well,
about disclosure.
mhm.
We've already got disclosure. It's confirmation is what we really
Yeah.
want.
Well,
And
confirmation, but will we be bumping shoulders and elbows with them?
well, I think I don't know if they really want to do that. It's
What if they
possible.
what if
They
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 just
may they
what if
may
they
have a
just
seat at the UN or something. I don't, it's
yeah, yeah.
possible. That you'll see
But
that'll be
I
the only way you see them. But whether or not they have a community down in Palm Springs or something, they're hanging
right.
out down there.
Right.
It's a
Retirement
whole
community and yeah,
yeah, yeah.
maybe that's what Earth is for them, a retirement community.
Mhm.
But what if they just take off? What if they're like, "Okay, they humans know way too much now. I think let's take a break," and they just stop visiting for a while?
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
All right, a question from Alice in Winterland. So, did our language begin to change in how we described UFOs as we crafted our own flying machines?
Hmm. Well, I think the terminology is certainly changed over the years. Now it's UAP is the big word. Before it was
Mhm.
UFO because the UFO had the crazy connotation attached to it. Now the UAP is more serious, and we need to really look at this in a serious way, which is a wonderful thing. And NARCAP, which was an organization that I know one of the founders, Ted Rowe.
Mhm.
Uh, Basically looked at this phenomena and they were the first ones to call it out as a UAP. This is
Mhm.
years and years ago. um, that in light of the fact that they were concerned with aviation issues with it because there's been near crashes with these UAPs, and safety concerns
Mhm.
with commercial aircraft and things of that nature. And they've done a wonderful job of documenting a lot of these near misses that have happened. But and going back, eons, you know, it, it, as I mentioned, the Romans talked about shields in the sky. That's
Mhm.
another terminology, or chariots of fire. Is Donegan talked about in his book, Eric von Donegan.
Yeah.
So and the Chinese talk about dragons, and various cultures talk about the dragons.
Mhm.
Even the Aztecs and the Mayans have serpents that could possibly have been craft of some sort that they uh, didn't know what to call it other than that.
Do you believe that Zechariah Sitchin's theory of a planet X is founded in reasonable interpretation of the glyphs?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. You know, it could be possible. I haven't heard any, scientific member of the community talk about that in any serious
Mhm.
way. Uh, but Sitchin has been uh, brought to task, so to speak, about his interpretations of the Sanskrit
Mhm.
and various things of that nature. So it's something that I certainly don't know for sure as
Well,
to what's happening in that regard.
astronomers still are. I think this came out in, I want to say, 2019, might have been earlier actually, 2016. There was uh, uh, some astrophysicists that were looking at the tug um, on the orbit. I think not just of Earth, but like all planets within the solar
Hmm.
system, and they're saying that there's something further out on the solar system that is contributing to this tug, creating kind of a
Hmm.
slight warp,
Right,
and it most likely is a planet, not an asteroid belt or something like that, but a
uh,
planet.
but a planet. Yeah,
Right.
and that's interesting. I mean, there's a uh, not exactly related, but it just
Mhm.
came to mind that there was a clairvoyant who died back in 1996. She was a Bulgarian clairvoyant. Her name was Baba Yanga,
Yeah.
and have you heard of her? Her,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
okay. And so
Mhm.
you know that story, and she claimed that in 2027
Mhm.
that an asteroid that was guided here by aliens would hit the Earth. And I happened to read that story, and of course, she did predict the twin towers in 9/11 incident accurately, as well as other incidents that have actually come true. Um, I sent this information to Linda Howe. Uh, Linda is also one of our advisory board members of Opus, and she sent me back an article that was done by NASA at a conference in Tokyo a number of years ago, where uh, they were they had this example, okay, and it was an exhibit. It was only, supposedly some kind of a interpretation of something, but it wasn't supposed to be true. The bottom line,
Okay. Yep.
that this asteroid would hit the Earth in 2027. So,
It's kind of coincidental.
yeah, and it said exhibit only, and they had
Yeah, yeah.
all these facts about it, where it was going to come in, where it was going to hit in the Pacific, and so it was
Mhm.
it was. You talk about a synchronicity where I saw this article, I sent it to her, and then she sends me this back, and it totally synced up.
Yeah. And by the way, it's Baba Vanga.
Vanga, right? Yes, Baba
Baba
Vanga.
Vanga.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you want to check her out, everyone
yeah.
listening. Yeah. So, well, my hope would be that that's maybe their way of getting our attention, and then it just turns out to be a near miss. I really hope that if this is true, that they're not intentionally trying to destroy Earth or something along those lines. Um, I
Yeah,
don't know what would be the purpose of throwing an asteroid at the planet Earth.
well, it depends, I guess, on how big it is. If it's like the one that blew out the dinosaurs, then they're talking about annihilating humanity on the planet. So have fun now before 2027.
All right. So, what's the future of Opus? Do you have any novel plans or directions?
Well, I think that the latest thing that we did is set up this EST group, the Experiencer Support Team, which
Okay.
we've never had before. Basically, we had one person handling the incoming requests and
Mhm.
dealing out the referrals and things of that nature. And now we have more of a team set up to do that. Besides our board members, we have 10 board members right now, and then we have an advisory board, which I mentioned. Linda Howe is on,
Yeah.
Melinda Leslie,
Mhm.
Yvonne Smith, and then Terry Lovelace is also on it.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to continually get the word out, and we're on Instagram now. We have this Opus interview series where I've interviewed various people myself,
Mhm.
and that's on our site as well as YouTube. And
Yeah.
and
It's
we're
on
gonna
opusnetwork for everybody
uh,
listening. And I saw Geraldine Orozco,
yes,
yeah, and Terry Lovelace was on the website as well.
right.
Uh, that's fantastic work. Les, if you can leave us with one thought, what would it be?
One thought. If you know anyone that has had an experience like this, or yourself, uh, please contact us if you're looking for assistance. We would love to help you, and we also depend on donations. So if you have a mind to help us out, we'd greatly appreciate it. We make it real easy on our site, and so hopefully. You can take a look at our site. We have a lot of information on there. We have various articles, various videos, um, and things that would be very helpful for you. And so we look forward to assisting you in any way we can.
All right, thanks, Les. And pretty soon they'll have bumper stickers that say "tax deductions for alien abductions."
Very
Support the
good.
cause. All right, thanks, Les. Have a good night. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much, Alan. I really appreciate you having me on your show, and it was fun. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and thank all of you for hanging out with us tonight. You have been listening or watching Paranormal Pop channel, and this is Paranormal Now, our weekly podcast on Thursdays, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, rebroadcast on the UNX Network, 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fridays. And yeah, you make this show possible. You keep me going. I love your questions. I appreciate your support. So if you're a fan, please like, comment down below, subscribe, and share this video far and wide, wherever you may hang in the social media realm. All right, this is Alan B. Smith. Thank you all again. And until next time, live in the mystery.